A word before we begin. Friends, I need to share something that happened last fall in the Texas Hill Country, because I believe you'll understand it better than most. At our age, and I'm guessing you've seen a few decades come and go like I have, we know that life's most profound moments don't arrive with trumpets and fanfare. They come quiet as morning mist, catching us when we're just trying to get through another day. This story is about Marlo Kincaid, a widow of 70 years who found something on a piece of dusty Texas ranch land that shouldn't have been there. What she discovered and what she chose to do about it divided a small community and forced folks to examine what they truly believed about mercy, justice, and the weight of old grief. It's about choices that aren't really choices at all, when your heart knows what's right, even when your head says run. The October morning had that particular Texas quality. Cool in the shadows, already warming where the sun touched the limestone rocks. Marlo Kincaid sat in the dust, her knees protesting the position, watching the cheetah breathe. She'd been there since dawn, after spreading George's old horse blanket on the ground, the one that still smelled faintly of leather oil and hay. The big cat lay under the juniper tree, a chain around her neck that had worn grooves in both flesh and bark. Every breath wheezed like wind through a broken screen door. The infection smell, sweet and wrong, carried on the breeze along with the scent of cedar and dried grass. Marlo heard Eldon Pike's truck before she saw it, that particular rattle his Ford made ever since he'd backed into his own gatepost last winter. He stepped out carrying his deer rifle, the same Remington his daddy had given him 40 years back. "Mrs. Kincaid, you need to step away from that animal right now." His voice carried that tone men use when they're scared but trying not to show it. The cheetah's breathing changed, muscles tensing despite her weakness. The chain clinked softly, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Morning to you too, Mr. Pike," Marlo said, not moving. She kept her voice gentle, the way George had taught her to speak around spooked horses. "You know how long she's been here?" 6 weeks. His boots crunched through the dry grass. "Found her near my cattle pen. Should have dealt with it then." "Dealt with it?" Marlo turned just enough to see his face, weathered like old leather, eyes the color of faded denim. "That what we're calling it now?" The cheetah made a sound then, not a growl or snarl, but something else. A chirping, like a bird calling for its mate. 3 short bursts, then silence. "My boy would be 19 now," Eldon said suddenly, the rifle trembling in his hands. "Jamie would have turned 19 last month." Marlo knew about Jamie. Everyone in the county did. The boy who loved taking pictures of wildlife until the day the wildlife took him. A mountain lion 7 years back, right at supper time. "This isn't a mountain lion, Eldon. How do you know? How can you be sure she won't?" His question hung there like dust in the morning light. Marlo reached for the mason jar of water she'd brought, the one from her own kitchen with the tiny chip on the rim. She poured some into George's camping bowl, dented aluminum that had seen 40 years of fishing trips. The cheetah's eyes tracked the movement. Gold eyes, like honey held up to sunlight, clouded now with fever. "Because she's dying," Marlo said simply. "Look at her. Really look." The cat's ribs showed through her spotted coat with each labored breath. Her right hind leg sat at an angle that spoke of old breaks poorly healed. But it was the collar, barely visible under the chain, that told the real story. Leather that had once been expensive, now rotting against infected skin. "Good Lord," Eldon whispered, and for the first time, Marlo heard it as prayer, not curse. She belonged to someone. Still does, I reckon. Question is who, and why she's chained to this tree like she's waiting for Judgment Day. A sound carried across the ranch land, vehicles approaching. More than one from the sound of the engines. "That'll be Deputy Cole," Eldon said. "Ruby Mae Jenkins called him yesterday. Said there was some crazy widow camping with a wild animal." The cheetah lifted her head an inch, made that chirping sound again. 3 calls, pause, 3 more. Like Morse code. Like a mother calling for children who would never answer. "You hear that pattern?" Marlowe asked. "She's been making it for days. Same rhythm, every time." So? So she's not calling random. She's calling specific. She's calling someone. Eldon's face went pale under his tan. "Thomas never said anything about cubs." The name dropped between them like a stone in still water. Thomas Pike, Eldon's brother, dead 2 years now from the cancer. "What did Thomas never say, Mr. Pike?" Before he could answer, Deputy Marcus Cole's cruiser pulled up, dust swirling in the morning light that was already turning from gold to white. Behind him, Marlowe could see another vehicle, Ruby May's old Buick, and behind that, 2 more trucks. The day was about to get complicated. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. Deputy Cole's boots hit the ground hard, raising small puffs of dust that drifted in the morning air. Marlowe could smell his aftershave, Old Spice, same kind George used to wear, mixing with the leather and gun oil scent that followed lawmen everywhere. "Mrs. Kincaid." Cole kept his voice steady, professional. His hand rested on his sidearm, not gripping, just resting. "I'm going to need you to step back from that animal." The cheetah's ear twitched toward his voice. Her breathing quickened. Marlowe could see each rib expand and contract under the spotted fur. A fly landed on the infected wound where chain met flesh. The cat didn't even flinch. "Can't do that, Deputy." Marlowe shifted her weight, her left knee crackling like breakfast bacon. The mason jar was empty now, water bowl pushed halfway between her and the dying cat. "Damn, that wasn't a request." Behind Cole, Ruby May climbed out of her Buick, her church dress, the navy one with tiny flowers, catching on the door handle. 2 more trucks pulled up, dust clouds merging into one brown haze. Marlowe recognized Tom Garrett's red Chevy, saw 3 more folks in the cab. "Marcus, just let me handle," Eldon started. "Nobody's handling anything until I understand what's happening here." Cole took 2 steps closer, squinting in the strengthening sun. "Mr. Pike, lower that rifle." The Remington made a soft scraping sound as Eldon let it point toward the ground. The cheetah's breathing hitched, stopped for a heartbeat, then resumed with a wet rattle that made Marlowe's chest tighten. "She's not wild," Marlowe said, keeping her voice conversational, like they were discussing the weather at Sunday service. "Check under the chain. There's a collar with tags." Cole leaned forward, careful, controlled. The morning sun caught the sweat already beading on his forehead. "I see it. Some kind of registration? SA 78 something. Rest is worn off, but there's part of a phone number." The deputy pulled out his phone, thumb moving across the screen. Behind him, car doors slammed. Voices carried, some angry, some curious. Someone said, "Rabies," loud enough for everyone to hear. State protocol for exotic animals is immediate removal. Cole's phone screen reflected in his sunglasses. Fish and Wildlife can kill her. Marlowe turned enough to meet his eyes directly. That's what removal means for a sick animal with no papers. The cheetah tried to lift her head, muscles straining against weakness. She made that sound again. 3 chirps, pause, 3 more. Her golden eyes fixed on something beyond them all, staring southeast across the scrubland. "Temperature's climbing," Cole said, looking at his phone weather app. "Going to hit 90 by noon." Marlowe watched the cat's gaze, that fixed stare toward the horizon. The worn circle in the dirt around the tree showed weeks, maybe months of pacing, always the same direction, always southeast. "Mr. Pike," she said slowly, a thought forming like storm clouds on the horizon. "Where exactly did your brother Thomas keep his property?" The silence stretched too long before Eldon answered, his voice barely above a whisper. 3 miles that way." He pointed southeast. "Exactly where she's looking." 3 miles southeast, Thomas's old property. The words settled in Marlowe's stomach like cold biscuit dough. You knew. The certainty came sudden as summer lightning. You knew she belonged to your brother. I didn't. Eldon's boots scraped against the caliche as he stepped backward. The Remington shook in his hands. Thomas never told me about any cats. He talked about starting something, a weekend business maybe, hunting preserve, but a hunting preserve. Deputy Cole's hand moved back to his sidearm. With African animals? In Texas? The cheetah's breathing went shallow, quick little gasps that barely moved her ribs. The smell of infection grew stronger as the morning warmed, sweet rot mixed with the copper penny taste of blood that somehow carried on the air. Ruby May had made her way over, her church shoes impractical on the rough ground. She carried her big leather purse, the one she'd had since President Reagan's time. This is what happens when people think they can play Noah's Ark. Wild animals don't belong here. She's not wild, Ruby May. Marlowe kept her eyes on the cat, watching the pulse flutter in her throat, weak as a baby bird's heartbeat. Look at her. Really look. Tom Garrett and two other men from his truck had formed a half circle, keeping their distance. One carried a shotgun, casual-like, broken over his arm. The morning sun caught the silver in Tom's mustache as he spat tobacco juice into the dust. Doesn't matter what she is, Tom said. She's dangerous. She can barely breathe, Marlowe said. Now, maybe. But what about when she recovers? What about when she's prowling around our properties? I got grandkids, Mrs. Kincaid. The cheetah's eye opened wider, pupil shrinking against the light. Her tongue, dry and pale as old leather, touched her lips. Marlowe reached for the water bowl, started to push it closer. Don't. Cole's voice carried authority. Nobody moves until we sort this out. She needs water. She needs to be put down. This from Bill Hutchins, who'd joined the group. Marlowe remembered him from George's funeral. He'd stood in the back, hat in hand, saying nothing. Now his face was red, whether from sun or anger, she couldn't tell. When Thomas died, Eldon said, his voice cracking like drought-dried earth. I cleaned out his place, found receipts, fencing materials, permits for something called Exotic Express, but no animals, nothing alive. When did he die? Marlowe kept her voice steady, though her mind was racing like a spooked horse. 2 years back, February. The cancer took him quick. 2 years. This cat had been out here 2 years. The math of it settled heavy. 2 Texas summers, 2 winters, alone. Cole's phone buzzed. He looked at it, frowned. State Wildlife's sending someone. They'll be here within the hour. They'll kill her, Marlowe said. That's their call. The cheetah made the sound again. 3 chirps, pause, 3 more. Weaker now, like she was running out of voice. Her gaze never left that southeastern horizon. Listen to that, Marlowe said. She's calling something specific, or someone. Animals don't, Bill started. My Annie's parakeet called for its mate for 6 months after it died, Ruby May interrupted, surprising everyone. Same whistle, same pattern, every morning at sunrise. Birds do it. Why not cats? The cheetah's body convulsed, a shudder that ran from nose to tail tip. Yellow drainage seeped from where the chain cut into her neck. The smell made Marlowe's eyes water. Mr. Pike, Cole said, I need you to tell me exactly when and where you found this animal. 6 weeks back, maybe 7. Eldon's knuckles were white around the rifle stock. Dawn, near my heifer pen. She was just standing there, looking southeast, making that sound. And you chained her here? I thought she was hunting. After Jamie. He stopped, swallowed hard enough that everyone could see his throat work. The mountain lion that killed Jamie. I shot it, tracked it 6 hours through the dark, found it, killed it. Thought I'd feel. The words died. The cheetah's breathing filled the silence, wet, labored,
like rain through a broken gutter. "There's something else," Marlowe said, studying the cat's body, reading the story written in scars and worn fur. "Those marks on her shoulders, her belly."
Even through the starvation, the signs were there. Loose skin, stretched marks that hadn't faded. "She's had cubs," Marlowe said. "She's a mother." Eldon made a sound that might have been prayer or curse. The rifle slipped from his hands, landing in the dust with a dull thud. "Where are her cubs, Mr. Pike?" "How would I know? I told you I found her 6 weeks." "No." Marlowe stood, her knees popping like firecrackers. "Where are Thomas's cubs?" "Thomas's cubs?" Eldon's face went gray as weathered fence posts. "There weren't any cubs. I would have known." "Would you?" Marlowe walked to his dropped rifle, picked it up careful-like, and leaned it against the juniper trunk. The metal was warm from his hands, smelled of gun oil and sweat. "You didn't know about her." More trucks were arriving. Marlowe counted 3, then 4, parking along the dirt road like folks gathering for a funeral. Doors slammed, voices carried on the warming air. Some she recognized, some she didn't. The morning was getting away from them. The cheetah hadn't moved, except for the labored rise and fall of her ribs. Each breath came with a wheeze that sounded like wind through a torn screen. The pool of drainage under her neck had attracted flies, fat black ones that buzzed and settled, buzzed and settled. "We need to do something about that infection," Marlowe said. "We need to wait for wildlife," Cole replied, but his voice had lost some of its official edge. He pulled out a handkerchief, white cotton, ironed crisp, and wiped his forehead. "They'll be here in 40 minutes. "She doesn't have 40 minutes. Ruby May had opened her purse, pulled out a thermos. The smell of coffee, strong and black, cut through the sick, sweet stench. She poured a cup into the thermos lid, handed it to Marlowe without a word. "Thank you." The coffee was still hot, burned going down, but Marlowe needed it. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of knowing time was running out. "I've got Thomas's papers," Eldon said suddenly. "In the truck. Everything I found when I cleaned out his place." He walked to his Ford, opened the toolbox in the bed. Metal scraped against metal. He returned carrying a cardboard banker's box, the kind you get at the office supply, edges soft with age and handling. "Never could bring myself to throw it out," he said, setting it down. Dust puffed up. "Or look through it proper." Marlowe knelt beside the box, lifted the lid. The smell of old paper and cigarette smoke wafted up. Thomas had been a Marlboro man, she remembered. Inside were receipts, yellowed invoices, a few photographs held together with a rubber band that crumbled when she touched it. "Look at this." She held up an invoice. "Exotic Express LLC, October 2019. 3 African cheetahs. 1 adult female, 2 juvenile females." "3," Cole said, reading over her shoulder. "Where are the other 2? The cheetah made the chirping sound again, so soft now it was barely audible. 3 calls. Always 3. Tom Garrett had moved closer, shotgun still broken over his arm but ready. "If there's more of these things out there—" "They're not things," Marlowe said sharply. "They're living creatures. Living creatures that can run 70 miles an hour and have teeth like knives." "Look at her leg." Marlowe pointed to the twisted hind limb. "She couldn't run 7 miles an hour. Probably hasn't been able to run since before Thomas died." She pulled out the photographs. The rubber band residue stuck to her fingers. The first photo showed Thomas standing next to a chain-link enclosure, smiling that crooked smile of his. The second showed the enclosure empty. The third— "Dear Lord," Ruby May breathed. The third photo showed 3 cheetahs, an adult female sitting in dry grass, 2 smaller cats beside her. Cubs, maybe 6 months old. One had a white mark on its shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. The other had spots that formed an almost perfect diamond on its forehead. On the back, in Thomas's shaky handwriting, "Serafina and babies, October 2019. "Serafina," Marlowe said softly. The cheetah's ear twitched. Just barely, but it moved. That's her name. Serafina. Names don't matter if she's dying, Bill Hutchins said. Names always matter, Ruby May corrected him, her voice carrying the authority of a woman who'd taught Sunday school for 40 years. Adam's first job in Eden was naming the animals. Marlowe set the photos aside, kept digging through the box. More receipts, fencing, feed, veterinary supplies. Then her fingers found something different. Metal. A key ring with 3 keys and a leather tag. Eldon, these look familiar? He took them, turned them over in his hands. That's to Thomas's storage unit, the one behind the Dairy Queen in town. You ever open it? No. Figured it was just junk. Been paying the monthly fee out of the estate, waiting to deal with it. Cole checked his phone. Wildlife's 25 minutes out. The cheetah, Serafina, tried to lift her head. Failed. Her tongue lolled out, dry as August corn husks. The infection smell was getting worse as the day heated up, mixed now with the coffee and tobacco juice and sweat from the growing crowd. We need to check that storage unit, Marlowe said. We need to wait for proper authorities, Cole countered. Proper authorities will put her down the minute they arrive. You know it, I know it, everyone here knows it. That might be the merciful thing, Tom Garrett said, not unkindly. Look at her suffering. She's not suffering, Marlowe said, though even she wasn't sure that was true. She's waiting. Waiting for what? Marlowe looked at the photo again. Serafina and her babies. The cubs would be over 2 years old now, if they were alive. She's waiting for her children to come home. The crowd had grown to maybe 20 people now. Some held rifles, some just stood watching. The sun was climbing higher, shadows shortening. A mockingbird landed on a fence post, ran through its repertoire of borrowed songs. I'll make you a deal, Deputy, Marlowe said, the plan forming as she spoke. Give me 1 day, 24 hours. Let me try to find those cubs. I can't. You can. This is Texas. We still believe in giving folks a chance. She's not folks, she's a wild animal. She's a mother, Ruby May said quietly. That makes her folks enough for me. Cole looked at the crowd, at Eldon, at the dying cheetah. His jaw worked like he was chewing on the decision. Even if I agreed, even if wildlife agreed, you'd need a vet to treat her. No vet's going to touch an illegal exotic. I know one who might, Marlowe said, remembering a name from George's old contacts. Dr. Sarah Brennan. She lost her clinic license but kept her veterinary certification. Works out of a van now, cash only. That's illegal. That's Texas, Tom Garrett said, surprising everyone. Sometimes legal and right don't match up perfect. Cole's phone rang. He answered, listened, his face tightening. Yes, sir. No, sir. Understood. He ended the call, looked at Marlowe. That was the sheriff. Says if you can get a licensed vet here in the next hour to assess her, he'll delay wildlife until tomorrow morning. Why would he do that? Because his daughter had a pet cheetah poster on her wall growing up. Still does, apparently. Cole almost smiled. You've got 1 hour to find your vet, Mrs. Kincaid. Marlowe pulled out her phone, George's old flip phone she'd finally learned to use. Found the number in his careful handwriting in the little notebook he'd kept. Dialed. 3 rings. Then a woman's voice, cautious. Who is this? Mrs. Brennan? This is Marlowe Kincaid, George's wife. You helped him once with an injured hawk. A pause. George passed, didn't he? I heard. 3 months ago. Dr. Brennan, I have a cheetah. She's dying. I can pay cash. Longer pause. How soon? Now. Right now. Text me the location. The line went dead. She's coming, Marlowe announced. That doesn't solve the cubs, Eldon said. He'd been standing silent, staring at the photos. If they're alive, where are they? Marlowe looked at the key ring in his hand, The storage unit key catching the sunlight. Only one way to find out. I'll go, Eldon said. It's my brother's mess. My responsibility. I'm going with you, Cole said. This is now an investigation. What about her? Ruby May nodded toward Serafina. I'll stay, Marlowe said. Dr. Brennan will be here in 30 minutes. The cheetah made a sound, not the chirping call, but something different. A low moan that seemed to come from deep in her chest. It echoed off the limestone rocks, carried across the scrubland toward the southeast. Every person there felt the hair on their necks rise. That's new, Ruby May whispered. She's calling them, Marlowe said. She knows we're trying to help, and she's calling her babies home. Another moan, longer, more desperate. And then, faint as a whisper, from somewhere out in the brush, came an answer. The answering call hung in the air like heat shimmer, there and not there, real as heartbreak but faint as memory. Every person stood frozen, coffee cups halfway to lips, conversations dead mid-word. You all heard that, Marlowe said. Wasn't a question. Tom Garrett lowered his shotgun slow, like sudden movement might scare the sound away. Could be a coyote. They make all kinds of noises. That wasn't no coyote, Ruby May said. Her coffee cup trembled in her hand, brown liquid sloshing against the white ceramic. I've lived here 73 years. I know every sound this land makes. Serafina's whole body had changed. Where before she'd been limp as wet laundry, now every muscle pulled tight. Her head lifted 2 inches off the ground. Cost her terrible effort. Marlowe could see the tendons straining in her neck, and her nostrils flared wide, pulling in air, searching for scent. She knows, Marlowe whispered. Cole and Eldon hadn't left yet, stood by the truck with doors open, frozen by that sound. Eldon's face had gone white as fresh bedsheets. That came from the direction of Thomas's place, he said. 3 miles off, Cole added, hand unconsciously checking his sidearm. Sound shouldn't carry that clear. Unless whatever made it is closer than 3 miles, Bill Hutchins said. He'd moved nearer to his truck, where Marlowe could see a rifle in the gun rack. The crowd was growing restless, some folks backing toward their vehicles, others pressing forward, curious. The morning sun was climbing higher, must be near 9 o'clock now. The temperature was rising with it. Marlowe felt sweat gathering under her collar, that particular hill country heat that starts gentle and ends brutal. Dust cloud on the road announced someone coming fast. A white van, older model, bouncing over the ruts like a boat in rough water. It skidded to a stop, and Dr. Sarah Brennan stepped out. Marlowe had expected someone younger, given the lost license story. But Sarah Brennan was near 60, gray hair pulled back tight, wearing jeans and a faded Texas A&M shirt. She carried a medical bag in one hand and what looked like an IV stand in the other. Where's my patient? No greeting, no small talk. Here. Marlowe led her to Serafina. She's been chained. I can see that. Sarah was already kneeling, fingers finding pulse points, checking eyes, examining the infected wounds. Her hands moved sure and quick, no hesitation despite the crowd watching. How long? At least 6 weeks, maybe months. Sarah pulled out a thermometer, the old-fashioned kind, slid it where it needed to go. Serafina didn't even flinch. Temperature's 105, maybe 106. Normal for a cheetah is 101. She continued her examination, fingers probing the swollen tissue around the chain. Systemic infection, severe dehydration, malnutrition. She looked up at Marlowe. This cat should be dead. But she's not. No, she's not. Sarah pulled supplies from her bag, IV bags, needles, bottles of medicine with labels Marlowe couldn't read. Everyone needs to step back. Give me room to work. You can't treat her here, Cole said. She needs a hospital. She needs antibiotics and fluids, and she needs them now. Sarah was already searching for a vein, difficult with all the swelling. Hospital can wait until she's stable enough to transport. The crowd had formed a loose circle, maybe 30 feet back. Some folks had their phones out, recording. Others just watched, faces mixing curiosity and fear in equal measure. Sarah found a vein, slid the needle in smooth as butter. Clear fluid began dripping from the IV bag she'd hung on the portable stand. "This is saline with antibiotics, broad spectrum. Best I can do without knowing exactly what bacteria we're dealing with." She pulled out another syringe, drew medication from a small bottle. "Painkiller. She's got to be in agony." As the medicine went in, Serafina's breathing changed. Deeper, less labored. Her eyes, which had been squeezed shut, opened slightly. The gold was clouded with infection, but there was something alert in them now. "Doc, we heard something," Tom Garrett said. "Another cat, sounded like, out toward the Pike property." Sarah didn't look up from her work. "Wouldn't surprise me. Cheetahs are social animals. They call to each other." "Over 3 miles?" "Their calls can carry up to 2 miles in ideal conditions." "With the wind right, maybe more." Cole's phone rang. He answered, walked a few steps away, spoke low. When he came back, his face was grim. "State Wildlife's here. They're at the gate, demanding access." "They can demand all they want," Ruby May said, surprising everyone with her firmness. "This is private property." "Not exactly," Cole said. "The boundary between Eldon's land and the old sanctuary land is disputed. Has been for years." Marlowe remembered something George had said once about that land, something about conservation easements and property lines. But the thought scattered as Serafina made that low moan again, louder this time. The answer came quicker, closer, maybe 2 miles now. "It's moving," Bill Hutchins said, and there was fear in his voice now. "Whatever's out there is coming this way." "Could be the cubs," Marlowe said. "Grown now, but still her cubs." "Grown cheetahs," Tom Garrett said. "That's supposed to make us feel better?" Eldon suddenly moved, almost running to his truck. He came back with the banker's box, rifling through papers. Here, look at this." Another receipt. Marlowe read it, felt her stomach drop. "Transfer of 2 juvenile cheetahs, November 2021. "That's 6 months before Thomas died," Cole said, reading over her shoulder. "He sold them." "To who?" Eldon's finger traced the faded ink. "Can't make it out. Starts with M. Maybe Marcus?" "Marcus Webb," Sarah said, not looking up from her work. "Had an exotic animal farm about 10 miles from here. Went bankrupt. Sold everything off about a year ago." "Sold to who?" "Anyone who'd pay cash. No questions asked." The implication settled over the crowd like a cold shadow. Illegal exotic animals, sold to whoever had money. No tracking, no permits, no way to know where they ended up. Serafina tried to lift her head again. This time she managed it, neck straining, eyes fixed on the southeast horizon. She made a different sound. Not the moan, not the chirp, but something between a cough and a grunt. "That's a contact call," Sarah said. "She's trying to identify herself to whatever's out there." Another answer, definitely closer. The mockingbird on the fence post had gone silent. Even the insects seemed to pause their buzzing. "I need to check that storage unit," Eldon said suddenly. "Thomas might have kept records there." "I'll go with you," Cole said. "You can't both leave," Marlowe protested. "If wildlife tries to, they won't." A new voice. Sheriff David Gonzalez walked up, his uniform crisp despite the heat. Marlowe had known David since he was a boy, fishing with George at the reservoir. "Nobody's doing anything until we sort this out proper." "Sheriff, there's another animal out there," Tom Garrett said. "We all heard it." "Then we'd best figure out what it is before it gets here." Gonzalez looked at Cole. "Take Mr. Pike to the storage unit. Mrs. Kincaid, you stay with the vet. Everyone else?" He raised his voice to Carrie. "I'd appreciate if you'd give these folks room to work." Some of the crowd began dispersing, heading back to trucks, but most stayed. This was the most exciting thing to happen in the county since the tornado of 18. Cole and Eldon left, truck kicking up dust. Sarah continued working on Serafina,
cleaning wounds, pushing medications through the IV. The cat's breathing had steadied, though the wheeze remained. "How long before she can be moved?" Marlowe asked. "Hours, maybe days. Depends on how she responds to treatment."
"We might not have days." Sarah looked up then, sweat beading on her forehead. "Why? What aren't you telling me?" Before Marlowe could answer, another call echoed across the land. Clear as church bells, close as next door. Not 3 miles, not 2, maybe 1. Ruby May grabbed Marlowe's arm, fingers surprisingly strong. "Look!" On the ridge where the land rose toward Thomas's property, something moved. A shadow against the morning sky, 4-legged, thin. "Get the rifles," someone shouted. "Nobody shoots anything," Sheriff Gonzalez commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Nobody moves." The shadow paused at the ridgetop. Even at this distance, Marlowe could see it was wrong somehow. Too thin, moving wrong, like Seraphina's twisted leg, but different. It called again, that same pattern. 3 chirps, pause, 3 more. Seraphina's whole body convulsed with effort as she tried to answer. Blood ran fresh from the chain wounds as she strained. Sarah held her down, gentle but firm. "Easy, Mama, easy." The figure on the ridge started down the slope. Not running, couldn't run, Marlowe realized. It was limping, dragging something. Tom Garrett had his binoculars out, the good ones he used for deer hunting. His hands shook as he adjusted the focus. "It's a cheetah," he said, voice tight. "Young one, maybe 2 years old." "Armed?" "Don't be stupid, Bill. But there's something wrong with it. It's dragging something. A chain. It's dragging a chain." Marlowe's knees nearly buckled. Another one. Another cheetah, chained like Seraphina, but mobile, dragging its prison with it across 3 miles of Texas scrubland. "It's coming home," she whispered. The young cheetah was maybe half a mile away now, that terrible, dragging sound audible even at this distance. Metal on rock, on dirt, on whatever lay between it and its mother. Seraphina made a sound then that Marlowe would never forget. Not quite scream, not quite roar, pure recognition, pure anguish, pure joy. The young cheetah stopped, lifted its head, and that's when Marlowe saw the white mark on its shoulder, crescent-shaped, like a moon, just like in Thomas's photograph. The young cheetah stopped 400 yards out, legs trembling like a newborn colt's. The chain dragging behind it had tangled in mesquite brush. Marlowe could hear the animals breathing even at this distance, harsh, ragged pulls of air that spoke of exhaustion beyond measure. "Nobody move," Sheriff Gonzalez said again, though nobody needed telling. The whole crowd stood frozen, watching that pitiful creature trying to free itself from the thorns. Tom Garrett still had the binoculars pressed to his eyes. "Jesus Christ. Sorry, Lord. But that chain's wrapped around its back leg. The skin's gone. I can see bone." Sarah looked up from Seraphina, whose whole body now shook with the effort of trying to rise. "I need someone to help me. If that cub gets here and the mother tries to get up, she'll tear out every IV line." "I'll help," Marlowe said. "You'll need to hold her head. Keep her down. She's strong, even dying." Marlowe knelt beside Seraphina's head, placed her hands on the cat's neck, gentle but firm. The fur was coarse, matted with sweat and blood and infection. Through her palms, she felt the animal's pulse, too fast, irregular, but fierce with purpose. The young cheetah had freed itself from the mesquite and started forward again. Each step looked like agony. The chain, maybe 15 feet of it, caught on every rock, every root. Sometimes the cat would stop, look back at its burden, then continue forward. Always forward, always toward its mother. "Why didn't it die?" Bill Hutchins asked, voice hushed. "Dragging that chain for who knows how long. Why didn't it just give up?" "Same reason she didn't,"
Ruby May said, nodding toward Serafina. Sometimes living isn't about logic. A dust cloud appeared on the road, Cole's cruiser returning.
It stopped hard, both doors opening before the engine died. Eldon stumbled out carrying something, Cole right behind him. "We found them," Eldon called, voice breaking. "Storage unit had 2 cages, 2 dead cheetahs. Been dead maybe a year." The words hit like physical blows. Marlowe felt Serafina tense under her hands. "But that's not possible," Sarah said, looking at the approaching cat. "That's clearly one of her cubs. The marking matches the photograph." Eldon came closer, and Marlowe saw his face was wet with tears. "The dead ones. They were young, maybe 2 years old. One had a diamond mark on its forehead." "Then who?" Marlowe started. "There were 3 cages," Cole interrupted. "One was broken, blood on the bars, fresh scratches on the concrete leading to the door. 3 cubs, not 2. Marlowe's mind raced backward through the document. The receipt said 2 juveniles, but the photo showed 2 cubs with Serafina. Nobody had thought to question the math. "Thomas lied," she said. "He kept one off the books." The young cheetah was 200 yards away now, close enough to see details without binoculars. The white crescent moon on its shoulder was unmistakable, but there was something else. Its left eye was clouded, blind. "Infection," Sarah said, squinting. "Probably from malnutrition. Vitamin deficiency can cause blindness in big cats." Serafina made that sound again, part moan, part scream. The young cat stopped, head tilting. Then it answered, and the sound was so full of exhaustion and relief that Ruby May started crying, tears rolling down her weathered cheeks. "Sheriff, we've got a problem," someone called out. 3 news vans were pulling up to the outer gate, satellite dishes already extending. Marlowe recognized the Channel 4 logo, then Channel 7. The story was going wide. "Tom, Bill, get down there," Gonzalez ordered. "Nobody gets past that gate." The young cheetah had started moving again, faster now despite the chain. 100 yards, 75. "I need to sedate the mother," Sarah said. "If they make contact while she's this agitated—" "No," Marlowe said. "Please, let them see each other first. She could die from the stress. She could die anyway." Sarah hesitated, syringe in hand. The young cheetah was 50 yards away now. 40. It had slowed, gone cautious. The blind eye made it move its head constantly, trying to see around its disability. 30 yards. Someone in the crowd shifted, boot scraping on rock. The young cat froze, head swinging toward the sound. Its lip curled back, showing teeth yellow with malnutrition. "Easy," Sheriff Gonzalez said softly. "Everyone just easy." 20 yards. Serafina's breathing had gone rapid, shallow. The IV bag swayed as her body trembled. Under Marlowe's hands, the cat's muscles bunched and released, wanting to rise, unable to manage it. 10 yards. The young cheetah stopped. This close, Marlowe could see everything. The ribs showing through patchy fur, the infected wounds where the chain wrapped around its leg, the way it favored its front right paw, but also the way its good eye fixed on Serafina with absolute recognition. "That's her baby," Marlowe whispered. "After all this time, that's her baby." The cub, though it wasn't really a cub anymore, made a soft chirping sound, different from the long-distance calls, intimate, personal. Serafina's throat vibrated with an answering purr that Marlowe felt through her palms. The young cat took another step forward. Another. Then, as if its legs simply couldn't hold it anymore, it collapsed 5 feet from its mother. The chain rattled against the rocks as it fell. "Now," Sarah said. "Hold her now." Marlowe pressed down as Serafina tried to lunge forward. The cat's strength, even dying, was enormous. The IV stand toppled. Sarah caught it, rehung the bag, checked the line. "The cub needs help," Marlowe said. "One patient at a time." But the young cheetah was crawling now, pulling itself forward with its front legs, the back legs dragging. The chain scraped against limestone, a sound like fingernails on slate. 3 feet. 2 feet. It reached Serafina's side, collapsed against her, and began grooming her neck wounds with its tongue. Gentle, careful licks around the worst of the infection. Serafina's whole body relaxed. The trembling stopped. Her breathing deepened. "Heart rate's dropping," Sarah said, checking her watch against Serafina's pulse. 60 beats per minute. That's almost normal." The 2 cats lay there, mother and child, one dying, one nearly dead, grooming each other with infinite care. "The chain," Marlowe said. "We need to get the chains off both of them." "I've got bolt cutters in the truck," Tom Garrett said, already moving. Eldon stood frozen, watching the cats. His hand went to his pocket, came out with a key ring. Not the storage unit keys, different ones, older. "These were in Thomas's desk," he said. "I never knew what they went to." He walked forward slowly, knelt beside the young cheetah. The key slid into the padlock on its chain, turned. The lock opened with a click that seemed loud as a gunshot. The chain fell away. The young cat didn't move, just kept grooming its mother. "The other key," Marlowe said. Eldon moved to Serafina, found the lock under layers of infected tissue. His hands shook as he inserted the key. It stuck, rust and blood clogging the mechanism. "Let me," Sarah said. She took the key, worked it carefully. The lock resisted, then suddenly gave. For the first time in months, Serafina's head moved freely. She turned, looked at her child, and made a sound Marlowe had never heard a cat make. Something between a sigh and a song. "We need to get them both to the hospital," Sarah said. "Now, the cub's in worse shape than the mother." "How? They won't separate." "Then we take them together." "In what?" "They need a livestock trailer, something enclosed." A horn honked at the gate, long and insistent. Everyone turned to look. A pickup truck with a custom trailer was pushing through the crowd of news vans. The trailer was the kind used for valuable horses, climate-controlled, smooth ride. The driver's door opened. Miguel Reyes stepped out, the caretaker from Thomas's property. Small, quiet Miguel, who nobody ever paid attention to. "I have been feeding her," he said, pointing at the young cheetah. "Every night for a year, after the others died. I could not let her starve." "You knew?" Eldon's voice was hollow. "You knew and didn't tell anyone?" "Mr. Thomas, he said if anyone found out, he would have me deported. My family depends on my money. But when I heard the cats calling today, I knew." Miguel's weathered face was wet with tears. "I brought the trailer from the ranch where I work now. They need help." Sheriff Gonzalez stepped forward. "Miguel, you know there might be legal consequences." "I know. But some things are more important than legal." The young cheetah had stopped grooming, laid its head on its mother's side. Both cats were breathing in sync now, slow and deep. "We need to move them now," Sarah said. "The cub's going into shock." Marlowe stood, knees protesting. "How do we lift them?" "Together," Ruby May said. She'd pulled off her church jacket, laid it on the ground. "We do it together." Tom Garrett brought a tarp from his truck. Bill Hutchins contributed a horse blanket. They improvised a stretcher, everyone arguing about the best way to do it but working in concert. "On 3, Sarah directed. They lifted Serafina first. She didn't resist, too weak or too trusting. The young cat tried to follow, dragging itself forward. "Get her too," Marlowe said. "Quick." More hands joined in. The young cheetah weighed almost nothing, all bones and patchy fur and desperate love. They loaded both cats into Miguel's trailer, laid them side by side on fresh hay. Sarah climbed in with her medical supplies. "I'll ride with them," Marlowe said. "Me too," Eldon said. "This is my fault, all of it." "No time for blame," Sarah said. "Just get us to the hospital." As Miguel started the truck, Marlowe heard something that stopped her heart. Another call. from the southeast, distant but clear. 3 chirps, pause, 3 more. There was another cheetah out there. Day 12, 4 in the morning. The veterinary hospital's fluorescent lights hummed like angry wasps. Marlo sat on the concrete floor beside Serafina's cage, her back against the cold metal bars. The smell of disinfectant couldn't mask the sweet rot of infection that had gotten worse, not better, despite all Dr. Brennan's efforts. Serafina's breathing had gone wet. Each inhale crackled like cellophane crumpling. The young cheetah, they'd started calling her Luna for the crescent mark, lay pressed against her mother through the bars of the adjoining cage. Neither cat had eaten in 3 days. Her temperature's 107.2. Sarah's voice came flat, exhausted. She'd been here round the clock, sleeping in her van in the parking lot. Organs are shutting down. Marlo's fingers found the ceramic urn in her bag, George's ashes. She'd carried them everywhere since that first day, unable to complete the task she'd set out to do. The ceramic felt cool against her palm. How long? Hours, maybe less. The door opened. Eldon entered carrying 2 cups of coffee from the all-night truck stop. His boots scraped on the concrete. He'd aged 10 years in 12 days, face gaunt, clothes hanging loose. Any change? Sarah shook her head, drawing medication into a syringe. I'm giving her more antibiotics, but honestly, we're just going through the motions. Luna lifted her head, made that soft, chirping sound. 3 calls. Always 3. Her mother didn't respond, hadn't responded in 6 hours. There's still another one out there, Marlo said. We all heard it. Sheriff's had people searching for a week. Eldon sat heavily on the bench, coffee forgotten. Nothing. Miguel said there were 3 cubs originally. Miguel says a lot of things now. The bitterness in Eldon's voice was sharp as broken glass. Funny how he remembers everything after the fact. Marlo understood the anger. It was easier than the guilt. She unscrewed the urn's lid, looked at the gray-white ash inside. George would have known what to do. George always knew. Sarah checked her watch. The specialist from San Antonio will be here at 7. He'll make the recommendation. They all knew what that recommendation would be. I need some air, Marlo said. Outside, the October morning was still dark, stars visible despite the parking lot lights. She walked to the scraggly oak tree at the lot's edge, the one trying to grow through a crack in the asphalt. Survivors, both of them. She took a handful of George's ashes, let them sift through her fingers onto the roots of the tree. Help me, she whispered. I don't know how to let go. A truck door slammed. Ruby May walked over, still in her house dress and slippers. She'd been coming every morning at 4:30, bringing food nobody ate. Couldn't sleep, she said. Nobody can. They stood quiet, watching the eastern sky start to lighten. Somewhere a mockingbird began its morning song, borrowed notes from other birds, never its own voice. The mountain lion, Ruby May said suddenly. What? The one that killed Jamie Pike. I was there when they brought it in. Dead. Eldon had shot it 16 times. 16! Like he thought if he killed it enough, Jamie would come back. Marlo turned to look at her old neighbor. Thing is, Ruby May continued, the lion was old, teeth worn down to nubs, probably hadn't eaten in weeks. It didn't attack Jamie. The boy surprised it, and it lashed out. Once. Pure instinct. Bad luck all around. Why are you telling me this? Because Eldon needs to hear it. Has needed to hear it for 7 years, but nobody wanted to take away his anger. Seemed like all he had left. They walked back inside. Eldon sat where they'd left him, but something had changed. He held papers in his hands, old ones, yellowed at the edges. Found these in Thomas's safety deposit box yesterday, he said. Didn't want to look, but... Marlo took the papers. Medical records. A diagnosis of brain tumor, dated 3 years ago. Treatment refused. Thomas was dying, Eldon said. When he bought those cheetahs, He already knew. The tumor, it affects judgment, makes people do things.
He was trying to build something, Sarah said, reading over Marlowe's shoulder. The receipts show plans for a conservation center, educational programs.
He wanted to transform the ranch into something meaningful before he died. Instead, he created this mess. Eldon's voice cracked. And I made it worse, chaining her, letting fear make my decisions.
Serafina convulsed, body rigid, then limp. Sarah rushed to check vitals. She's seizing. The infection's in her brain. Luna pressed harder against the bars, calling frantically. The sound echoed off the concrete walls. 3 chirps, pause. 3 chirps, pause. Over and over. We have to decide, Sarah said, pulling out a vial of pentobarbital. This is cruel now. Marlowe knelt beside Serafina's cage. The cat's eyes had rolled back, showing only white. Her mouth was open, tongue pale as paper.
Wait!
Eldon's voice came strangled.
Just wait!
He pulled out his phone, scrolled through videos, found one, hit play. A young boy's voice filled the room. Dad, look! She's purring.
The mama cat is purring for her babies. Jamie Pike, 12 years old, filming through the fence of what must have been Thomas's enclosure. The video showed Serafina, healthy and strong, lying in grass with 3 cubs climbing over her. The soundtrack was pure contentment, that rumbling purr cheetahs make when all is right with their world. Luna went silent, head cocked, listening. Then she began to purr in response to the recording, soft at first, then stronger. Serafina's seizure stopped. Her eyes rolled forward, focused on nothing, but her throat began to vibrate. Barely audible, but there, an answering purr.
She can hear, Marlowe whispered. Play it again, Sarah said.
Eldon did. This time when Jamie's young voice said, Hey, pretty mama, you're such a good mama. Serafina's breathing deepened. The door burst open. Deputy Cole rushed in, face flushed. We found it. The 3rd cub. But you're not going to believe where. Where? Marlowe stood so fast her vision sparked. Private safari ranch in Kerr County. Legal operation. They've had it for 2 years. He held up his phone, showing a photograph. They call her Stella. She's healthy. And Mrs. Kincaid, she had cubs of her own 6 months ago. Serafina's eye moved, tracking toward Cole's voice. They're willing to bring her here, Cole continued. The owner, he saw the news coverage. Says if it might help.
How long?
2 hours. Maybe less if they push it.
Sarah looked at the cats, at her medical supplies, at the vial of death in her hand. She won't last 2 hours. Then we make her last, Marlowe said. She opened the cage door, ignoring Sarah's protest, and lay down beside Serafina. The concrete was cold through her shirt. She placed her hand on the cat's side, felt the irregular heartbeat, the struggle of damaged lungs. I'm going to tell you about George, she said softly. How he saved a fox kit once. How he raised it. How he let it go. Eldon sat on Serafina's other side, phone in hand. And I'm going to play Jamie's videos. All of them. Luna continued purring, the sound filling the small space like prayer. Sarah looked at them, 2 grieving people and 2 dying cats, holding on through nothing but will and love. She set down the vial of pentobarbital. 1 hour, she said. We give her 1 hour. 45 minutes later, Serafina's heart stopped. Sarah's hands pressed rhythmically on Serafina's chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. The cat's ribs bent under the pressure. No response. The heart monitor's flat tone filled the room like a prayer gone wrong. Epinephrine, Sarah barked. Her hand found the syringe, jabbed it into Serafina's thigh. The muscle didn't even twitch. Luna threw herself against the bars, separating her from her mother, calling in sharp, desperate chirps. Her claws caught on the metal, tore.
Blood spotted the concrete. "Hold her," Sarah ordered Eldon. "She'll hurt herself." Eldon wrapped his arms around Luna, pulled her back. She twisted, sank teeth into his forearm. He didn't let go. Marlowe kept her hand on Serafina's side, feeling for something, anything. The fur was still warm but going slack, that particular looseness of death. "Come on," Sarah muttered, compressions continuing. Sweat dripped from her chin onto Serafina's spotted coat. "Come on." The door slammed open. Ruby May stood there, breathing hard, waving papers. "Not now," Sarah said without looking up. "Yes, now." Ruby May's voice carried iron. "Marlowe, this land where you found her, it's yours." "What?" "George filed conservation papers 3 months ago. Federal protection. That juniper tree, that whole section, it's Kincaid Wildlife Preserve now." Marlowe's hand stilled on Serafina's fur. George had done this. Dying of cancer, he'd secured land for her. For moments like this. Sarah stopped compressions, grabbed her stethoscope, listened. Her face went blank, professional mask slipping. "I've got something. Faint, but..." She resumed compressions, harder now. "The epinephrine's working." The monitor flickered. A blip. Then another. Irregular, weak, but there. "She's back," Sarah said. "Barely, but she's back." Luna had gone still in Eldon's arms, her good eye fixed on her mother. She made a different sound now, lower, almost a hum. Ruby May was still talking, words tumbling out. "There's more. My grandson, the computer one, he found records. That safari ranch Cole mentioned? They have 2 cheetahs from Thomas's stock, not 1, 2. "That's not possible," Eldon said. "The receipt showed." "The receipt was fake." Ruby May thrust the papers at him. "Thomas sold 3 cubs to 3 different places, was trying to hide money from creditors. The tumor had him paranoid about losing everything." Sarah had her phone out, talking rapid medical terminology to someone. "Yes, white cell count through the roof. No, we've maintained vitals for... Yes, I understand the prognosis." She ended the call, looked at them. "The specialist says even if she survives the next hour, the sepsis has likely caused permanent organ damage." "But she's alive," Marlowe said. "For now." A truck roared into the parking lot, gravel flying. Through the window, Marlowe saw a large trailer, the kind for transporting horses. Or big cats. "That's them," Cole said, "from Kerr County." 2 people got out, a man in his 60s wearing ranch clothes and a younger woman in veterinary scrubs. They moved to the trailer's back, spoke quietly, then opened it. The sound that emerged made everyone in the room freeze. A cheetah's call, but different from Luna's chirping. Fuller. Adult. Serafina's eye opened. Just a slit, but conscious. "Bring her in," Sarah said. "Quickly." They wheeled in a cage. Inside, a healthy female cheetah, 3 years old according to the paperwork. She had a white mark on her shoulder. Not a crescent like Luna, but a star. The diamond forehead marking from the photograph was there too. "This is Stella," the woman said. "I'm Dr. Patricia Morse. This cat was brought to us 2 years ago, severely malnourished. We nursed her back." Stella saw Luna first. Both cats went rigid. Then Stella made a sound Marlowe had never heard, something between a chirp and a moan. Luna answered immediately. Same sound, same pitch. "They know each other," Dr. Morse said. "Dear God, they remember." But it was Serafina's reaction that stopped everyone. Her whole body convulsed, not a seizure, but an attempt to rise. Her head lifted 2 inches off the concrete before falling back. "She knows too," Sarah said. "Even dying, she knows her babies." The man from the safari ranch, he'd introduced himself as Jim Howell, cleared his throat. "There's something else." "Stella had cubs 6 months ago, 2 females. They're in the truck." "Grandchildren," Ruby May whispered. "Serafina has grandchildren." "We can't bring them all in here," Sarah protested. "We don't have to," Dr. Morse said. "If Serafina can hear them, that might be enough." They positioned Stella's cage where Serafina could see her. The dying cat's eye tracked, focused. Stella lay down, pressed against the bars, and began grooming herself. Slow, deliberate strokes of her tongue over her paws and face. It was what mother cats did to show their young that everything was safe. Luna joined in, grooming through the bars. 2 daughters, cleaning themselves for their mother who could no longer clean them. "The cubs," Marlowe said. "Let her hear the cubs." Jim Howell brought in a small carrier. Inside, 2 spotted bundles of energy, maybe 6 months old, play-fighting and chirping. The sound was pure life, young and strong and unafraid. Serafina's throat moved. No sound came out, but the motion was clear. She was trying to purr. "Her blood pressure's rising," Sarah said, checking monitors. "Heart rate stabilizing." Eldon had his phone out, recording. "For Jamie," he said quietly. "He would have wanted to see this." The room filled with cats' voices. Luna's chirps, Stella's calls, the cubs' playful sounds. And underneath it all, barely audible, Serafina's broken purr. "I need to make a decision," Jim Howell said. "We can take Luna back with us, get her healthy. But we need to know now." "No." Eldon's voice was firm. "They stay together. All of them." "Where? You don't have facilities. We'll build them." He looked at Marlowe. "On your conservation land. We'll build whatever they need." "That costs money," Jim said. "I've got cattle to sell." Eldon pulled out his checkbook, started writing. "This enough to start?" Dr. Morse looked at the amount, nodded slowly. "It's a good start." Sarah was injecting something into Serafina's IV. Stronger antibiotics, experimental stuff. If she makes it through the next 12 hours, she'll make it, Marlowe said. "How do you know?" Marlowe pointed to Serafina's eye, now fully open, watching her cubs play. "Because she just decided to." The door opened again. Miguel entered, hat in hand. Behind him stood someone else, a woman Marlowe didn't recognize. Dark hair, maybe 40, wearing a business suit that looked out of place in the veterinary hospital. "This is Ms. Angela Chen," Miguel said. "She's from the Nature Conservancy." Angela Chen stepped forward, briefcase in hand. "We've been monitoring this situation. The Conservancy is prepared to offer a grant for a cheetah rehabilitation facility on the Kincaid Preserve." "How much?" Sarah asked. $2 million. Full facility construction, 5 years operating expenses." The room went silent, except for the cats' voices. "Why?" Marlowe finally asked. "Because what's happening here? This community coming together, predator and human, fear transforming into compassion? This is the story conservation needs." Angela pulled out documents. "But there's a condition." "What condition?" "The facility must also take in other displaced exotic cats. There are dozens in Texas alone, kept illegally, suffering like Serafina." Marlowe looked at the dying cat, at her daughters, at her grandchildren, at Eldon holding his bleeding arm where Luna had bitten him, at Sarah, exhausted, but still fighting, at Ruby May, still in her house dress and slippers at 5 in the morning. "We'll take them," she said. "All of them." Angela smiled. "There's one more thing. We've located the 3rd cub, the male." Everyone turned to stare. "He's been living wild on a ranch near Del Rio. The rancher's been protecting him, feeding him. Says the cat saved his grandson from a rattlesnake last year." Serafina's body went rigid. Her heart monitor spiked. "She heard you," Sarah said. "She understood." The male cub, her only son, was alive. 21 days. Marlowe stood at the fence line of what used to be empty scrubland, watching the excavator break ground. The October sun felt different now, warmer somehow, though the calendar said it should be cooling. Serafina lay in the veterinary hospital's outdoor recovery pen, IVs finally removed, breathing on her own. Her neck bore thick scars where the chain had been. She'd never walk right. Nerve damage, Sarah said, but she was walking. 10 steps yesterday, 15 today. Luna pressed against her mother's side,
grooming the scarred neck with endless patience. Stella watched from the adjoining pen with her 2 cubs tumbling over her back. The little ones didn't understand why they couldn't reach their grandmother yet, chirped questions their mother couldn't answer. "Transport's here," Eldon called from the gate.
The specialized wildlife trailer pulled up. Same one Jim Howell had brought from Kerr County, but modified now. Climate control, padded walls, viewing windows. The Nature Conservancy's grant money at work. Dr. Patricia Morse supervised the loading. Serafina went first, slow and unsteady, but walking into the crate on her own power. Luna followed without hesitation. Stella needed encouragement. She'd learned to distrust transport, but her cubs scrambled in eagerly, and she followed. "The mail will meet us there," Angela Chen said, checking her phone. "The rancher from Del Rio is driving him up personally. Says he won't trust anyone else with his boy." Marlowe climbed into the trailer's observation compartment with Sarah. Through the mesh, she could see all 5 cats, 3 generations of survival against odds that should have killed them all. The drive took 2 hours. Marlowe watched Texas roll by through the small window. Mesquite and cedar, limestone cliffs, hawks circling in thermals. George would have loved this. She pulled out his urn, still 3/4 full of ashes. "You okay?" Sarah asked. "He knew," Marlowe said. "Somehow George knew I'd need that land. Maybe he just knew you'd need something worth fighting for." The new facility wasn't much yet, just fencing and a basic shelter. But the enclosure was 5 acres of natural terrain, with trees, rocks, a stream fed by well water. The community had been working round the clock. Tom Garrett had brought his tractor. Bill Hutchins donated fencing. Ruby May organized food for the workers, her church ladies keeping everyone fed. They backed the trailer to the release gate. Inside, Serafina stood alert, nostrils flaring. She could smell it. Space. Freedom. Something that wasn't concrete and metal. "Wait," Eldon said. "He's here." Another truck pulled up, rust-red and older than Marlowe. A Hispanic man got out, maybe 70, weathered like old leather. He walked to his trailer, spoke softly in Spanish, then opened it. The male cheetah that emerged took Marlowe's breath away. Larger than his sisters, coat healthy despite his wild living. He had the same elegant build as Serafina, but stronger, unmarked by chains or cages. "We call him Milagro," the rancher said. "Miracle. Found him near dead 2 years ago, just a cub. My wife said put him down, but my grandson begged." Milagro stood perfectly still, head raised, scenting the air. Then he made a sound, not a chirp, but a deep moan that resonated in Marlowe's chest. From inside the trailer, Serafina answered. Same tone, same duration. "Open them both," Sarah said. "Let them choose." They opened the gates simultaneously. Serafina emerged first, limping but steady. The male saw her, froze. They stood 20 feet apart, mother and son, separated for 2 years that must have felt like a lifetime. Luna and Stella emerged next. The 4 cats formed a loose circle, not touching, just looking. Then Luna chirped, 3 times, pause, 3 times. Her brother answered. Stella joined in. Serafina walked forward, each step careful on her damaged leg. She reached her son, lifted her head, touched her nose to his. He towered over her now, but when she began grooming his face, he lowered himself to the ground like a cub. "I'll be damned," the rancher whispered. "Pardon, Lord, but he remembers." The cubs, Stella's babies, tumbled out last, saw the space, and took off running. Their joyful chaos broke the spell. Luna gave chase, still limping but trying. Stella followed more sedately. Even Serafina took a few running steps before her leg gave out. Milagro stayed beside his mother, supporting her weight when she stumbled. "They'll need months of rehabilitation," Dr. Morse said. "Maybe years. Luna's eye might never heal. Serafina will always limp." "But they're together," Ruby May said. She'd arrived with her church van full of people who'd wanted to witness this. That's what matters. Miguel stood apart from the group, hat in his hands. He'd been charged with harboring exotic animals, but released on recognizance. The community had rallied around him. Even Tom Garrett had offered him work. You saved them, Marlowe told him. You're feeding Luna, keeping her alive. You saved them all. I just did what anyone would do. No, Eldon said. You did what you thought was right, even when it could cost you everything. That's rare. As the sun started its descent toward the horizon, the cats settled under a large oak tree. Serafina lay in the center, her children arranged around her like they must have years ago, before chains and separation and near death. The cubs played in the grass nearby, stalking butterflies with clumsy determination. We need a name for this place, Angela Chen said. For the grants and paperwork. Marlowe looked at the cats, at the land George had somehow known she'd need, at the community that had come together despite their fears. Serafina's Haven, she said. That works, Angela made notes. We'll need to build proper facilities, medical center, quarantine areas, education center. Tomorrow, Sarah interrupted. We'll plan tomorrow. Today, just let them be. Marlowe walked to the oak tree, sat in the grass far enough away not to disturb the cats. She opened George's urn, poured the remaining ashes around the tree's roots. The wind caught some, carried them across the enclosure, dusting the grass where the cheetahs rested. Serafina lifted her head, watched the ashes swirl and settle. She made that soft, purring sound, the one she'd made when her daughters first found her. Thank you, Marlowe whispered, not sure if she was talking to George or God or the universe itself. The male, Milagro, stood and walked toward her. Everyone tensed, but he simply sat down 10 feet away, facing the same direction she was, watching the sun paint the Texas hills gold. He knows you're safe, the rancher said. Animals, they know these things. As darkness approached, the cats began their evening calls. Not the desperate chirping of separation, but something else. Contentment, connection, family saying goodnight. The sound carried across the hills, and somewhere in the distance, a mockingbird learned their song, added it to its repertoire. 3 months later, Serafina's Haven officially opened. The first rescued cat arrived that day, a tiger from a roadside zoo, arthritic and nearly blind. Serafina watched from her favorite spot under the oak tree as they unloaded him, made that soft purring sound that meant welcome. By spring, they had 12 cats. By the year's end, 23, each with a story of survival, each finding peace in the Texas hills that had nearly been Serafina's grave. Marlowe lived in the small house they'd built on the property. Every morning she had coffee while watching Serafina and her family wake with the sun. Luna's eye never healed, but she'd learned to navigate. Stella's cubs had grown strong and confident. Milagro had become the gentle patriarch, watching over them all. Some mornings, when the mist rose from the stream and the light came sideways through the oaks, Marlowe could almost feel George beside her, proud of what his final gift had become. Not just land, but sanctuary. Not just survival, but family. The chains were gone, but their memory remained in scars and limps and careful movements. That was okay. Scars meant survival. Limps meant you'd kept walking when walking seemed impossible. And careful movements? Well, those just meant you'd learned to value each step. Connecting hearts. I need to tell you something about what happened after. Ruby May's church raised $40,000 selling pies and quilts. Tom Garrett, who'd wanted Serafina shot, now brings hay every week, won't take payment. Says watching the cubs play is payment enough. Eldon built a memorial bench under that oak tree, not for Jamie, but for second chances. Miguel became the sanctuary's first official caretaker, his immigration status resolved through community petitions. Even Deputy Cole brings his grandkids now. teaches them that fear and respect aren't the same thing. Marlo? She finally scattered all of George's ashes around that tree where Serafina rests each evening. She told me once that healing doesn't erase scars, it just makes them bearable. The sanctuary has 32 cats now. Each one arrived broken. Each one chose to trust again. Disclaimer: this story was inspired by actual wildlife rescue events, but has been adapted solely for entertainment purposes. All characters, names, and specific events are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or actual events is purely coincidental. This narrative does not condone, encourage, or promote keeping exotic animals as pets, wildlife trafficking, or any form of animal cruelty. Wildlife encounters should always be handled by trained professionals and proper authorities. This work aims to promote compassion and wildlife conservation through storytelling.